explicación de el uso de el verbo gustar. We're going to learn how to use the verb gustar with actions we enjoy doing. ¿Qué te gusta hacer? What do you like to do? ¿Qué te gusta hacer? What do you like to do? So we're going to use the verb gustar, and we're going to use activity verbs. So if I ask you, ¿qué te gusta hacer? I'm trying to find out what do you like to do. You would start your answer with me gusta, I like to, and then the action. Me gusta bailar, I like to dance. Me gusta practicar deportes, I like to practice sports. If I asked you, ¿por qué te gusta hacer eso? It's why do you like to do that? ¿Por qué te gusta hacer eso? Why do you like to do that? ¿Qué te gusta hacer? Let's go kind of in a clockwise motion. Top left, me gusta leer, I like to read. You can pause this video anytime if you want to hear these again. I'm going to go through the rest. Me gusta escuchar música, I like to listen to music. Me gusta tocar la guitarra, I like to play guitar. Me gusta montar en monopatín. Montar means to ride, and so we can use that in our next verb. Me gusta montar en bicicleta. Me gusta esquiar. I like to ski. Me gusta ver la tele o ver la televisión. I like to watch TV. Me gusta correr. I like to run. Me gusta practicar deportes. I like to practice sports. O me gusta jugar deportes. I like to play sports. Me gusta pasar tiempo con amigos. I like to spend time or pass the time with my friends. Another way to think of this in English would be I like to hang out with my friends. And you do have to remember that whole phrase, because otherwise it won't make sense. So you're going to need to remember all four words. Pasar tiempo con amigos. Spend the time with your friends. I like to draw. Me gusta dibujar. I like to paint. Me gusta pintar. I like to use the computer. Me gusta usar la computadora. Now you can do all kinds of things on la computadora. You could ver la tele en la computadora. You could estudiar en la computadora. All kinds of things. But a general way to say use the computer, usar la computadora. Me gusta bailar. Think of the word ballet. I like to dance. Me gusta cocinar. I like to cook. Me gusta patinar. I like to skate, right? So we have skating, patinar. If you have ice skates, it's patinar sobre hielo. And if you skateboard, there's that patin word again. In this case, it's monopatin, one board with the skates. Some countries also call a skateboard a patineta, all right? But either way, patin is the root word for skating. I like to swim. Me gusta nadar. I like to eat and drink. I like to work. Me gusta trabajar. Hopefully you find a job that you like to work in. Me gusta trabajar. I like to talk on the phone. Me gusta hablar por teléfono. Notice that the H is silent over here, right? Me gusta hablar por teléfono. Eat and drink. Me gusta comer y me gusta beber. Some countries call it tomar. I like to play. Me gusta jugar. What do I like to play in this case? Me gusta jugar videojuegos. I like to sing. Me gusta cantar. I like to write. Me gusta escribir. In your book it talks about writing stories. Escribir cuentos. And the last one is I like to go. In this case I like to go to school. So the verb ir means to go. Me gusta ir a la escuela. So that's how you talk about what I like to do. Now what if we're talking about what other people like to do? We're going to need different pronouns instead of me before we use the verb gusta. So So our pronouns we're going to use are called indirect object pronouns: me, te, le, nos, os, and les. If I like something, it's me gusta. Now, if I want to add emphasis and say I like it even if you don't, or something along that line, then we're going to add a mí me gusta. All right, we're only going to use gustan if I'm trying to say I like plural things, like I like, apples, me gustan manzanas, or I like movies, me gustan películas. But if I'm trying to say I like a singular noun, or if I like actions, then I could just say me gusta jugar videojuegos. Okay, if we like something, we're going to say nos gusta. So we like to play video games, nos gusta jugar videojuegos. Same rules apply. You can also add a nosotros for emphasis, or a nosotras, but you don't need to. And you can also use nos gustan if we like plural things, like nos gustan libros, we like books. But if we like to read, now we're just going to say gusta, nos gusta leer. All right, if I'm talking to someone who's a peer, somebody who's my social equal, somebody my age or younger, a friend, a cousin, a brother, or sister, I'm going to say te gusta, you like, or te gustan, you like plural things. And if I want to add emphasis, a ti te gusta. If I talk to somebody that is my superior or somebody who I need to be polite to, Mr. Miller, or the principal, or my boss maybe, or even a stranger, then I would say a usted le gusta. Now notice there's no parentheses here. You're going to need to say a usted. You can't skip that one. It's not really optional here. And the reason is because you're going to see a few different people using the phrase le gusta. And so if we're going to be clear about who we're talking about, we need to add the emphasis phrase. A usted le gusta practicar deportes. You like to practice sports. And again, only use gustan if it's plural nouns. A usted le gustan zapatos blancos. You like white shoes. Now imagine you were talking to a group of your friends, a group of your peers. You can use the vosotros form. Os gusta, or os gustan. Alright, it's optional to use a vosotros or a vosotras. Alright, a vosotros os gusta jugar al fútbol americano. You guys like to play football. If you're talking to people that you need to show politeness to, and there's a group of them, you're going to use the plural. A ustedes les gusta. And notice, a ustedes has no parentheses. This is mandatory. We need to keep that in there. You can't just skip that. A ustedes les gusta hablar. You guys like to talk. He likes. A él le gusta. You got to include the a él. It's not optional, right? Because now you're noticing, look, there's le gusta with usted, le gusta with ella. So how do I know who we're talking about? I gotta include that emphasis phrase. A él le gusta. A él le gusta jugar videojuegos. He likes to play video games. A ella le gusta leer. She likes to read. And if they like to do something, we're going to say a ellos or a ellas les gusta. So there's les gusta again. We saw it with a ustedes les gusta. And then we've got a ellos les gusta or a ellas les gusta. So we got to be careful when we use the le gusta or les gusta to mention who it is that we're talking about. A ellos les gusta pasar tiempo juntos. They like to spend time together. Okay, so if you know anything about bees, you know that they can teach each other how to find nectar by doing a special dance. They dance in a particular direction with a certain angle, and they show the other bees where to fly to the right flowers to find the right nectar. So, a la abeja le gusta bailar. The bee likes to dance. So I'm talking about the bee. All right, so he, she, or it. A la abeja le gusta. So we're not saying me gusta anymore because we're talking about a bee. So le gusta. right. Al pájaro le gusta cantar. The bird likes to sing. Again, we're talking about him, her, or it. Le gusta cantar. Alright, el cocodrilo. What does this particular crocodile like to do? A este cocodrilo le gusta montar en monopatín o en patineta. Al perro le gusta mucho correr. Al perro le gusta correr. He likes to run. Al pez le gusta nadar. Al ciervo o venado, en este caso, in this picture, le gusta tocar la guitarra. A la araña le gusta leer. A los gatos les gusta ver la tele. So if we're talking about one cat, le gusta ver la tele. If I talk about both of them, they like to watch TV, then I would switch it to a los gatos les gusta ver la tele. Al oso le gusta montar en bicicleta. Al toro, in this case, al toro le gusta usar la computadora. Al león, if we're talking about one lion, al león le gusta pasar tiempo con amigas. So the lion likes to pass the time with or spend time with his friends. A la ardilla le gusta esquiar. In this case, esquiar acuática, esquiar en el agua. A la serpiente o la culebra le gusta jugar los videojuegos. Al tigre le gusta escuchar música. A la tortuga le gusta escribir cuentos. This turtle likes to write stories. Al señor Ed, un caballo, le gusta hablar por teléfono. Alright, so that's how you talk about what other people like with le gusta. You say a, and then who it is, and then le gusta, and then the action. Okay, so here's how we talk about with more emphasis, alright, when you love something, not just like it. Okay, so here's how we use like. Me gusta comer verduras. I like to eat vegetables. No me gusta leer. I don't like to read. Me gusta el fútbol. I like soccer. So now I switched from saying I like to do a certain action, and I said a thing that I like. Me gusta el fútbol. Right, if I like plural things, I switch to me gustan. Me gustan manzanas. I like apples. And here's a couple phrases that can add some extra emphasis to gustar. Alright, if I like something a lot, I'm going to say me gusta mucho. Me gusta mucho dormir. I like sleeping a lot. Or I really like to sleep. If I don't like something at all, I don't like it at all, not at all. I really don't like it. Then I say no me gusta nada trabajar. I don't like working at all. If you want to talk about what you love to do or what you really enjoy, okay, this isn't love in the sense of romance. This is love in the sense of this is my favorite thing. Then you say me encanta or me encantan. Most of the time it's me encanta. Alright, so for example, me encanta comer uvas. I love eating grapes. They're delicious. you don't really use no me encanta very often, unless you're trying to make a contrast between something you like but you don't really love it. You only sort of like it. So, for example, me gusta leer, pero no me encanta. I like to read, but I don't love it. Me encanta el fútbol americano. You can love a thing. So in this case, I love football. If I love plural things, plural nouns, then I gotta switch to me encantan. Me encantan uvas. I love grapes. Delicious. And if I love to do actions, me encanta action. So me encanta comer, me encanta dormir, me encanta jugar videojuegos. I love doing those actions. So again, we don't usually use no me encanta. We don't really need to. All right, we definitely wouldn't say no me encanta mucho, because me encanta already implies that you really feel strongly about this. So it would be extra and redundant to say me encanta mucho. We don't need to say that. We only say mucho with me gusta. Me gusta mucho, I like it a lot. Or me encanta, I love it. All right, and here's a couple phrases you can use to talk about how you would react if people said what they liked or what they loved. So, for example, if somebody tells you something that they like to do, me gusta mucho bailar, I like to dance a lot, you can say, me too. A mí también. Me too. I like to dance also. También means too or also. You gotta start it with a mí, because it is talking about myself and what I like. All right, so the first person says, me gusta mucho bailar, and the person speaking in response answers, a mí también, me too. If a person tells you, me encanta leer libros, I love reading books, and then that person wants to find out, how about you? He'd ask, ¿y a ti? And you? How about you? Right? Me encanta leer libros. ¿Y a ti? How about you? And you could answer, sí. A mí también. There's a mí también one more time. Yeah, me too. I like it as well. All right, so some phrases we should pick up here are a mí también, which is me too or me also. ¿Y a ti? How about you? And there's a mí también again. Now, what if somebody says I don't like something? No me gusta nada dibujar. I don't like drawing at all. She really feels strongly about this. And the person she's talking to, she answers, I don't like this either. So instead of saying también, which means also, she's going to say me neither. A mí tampoco. A mí tampoco. All right, there's one more thing I'm going to mention. I don't have a slide for this, but we probably see it in some practice sentences. If you don't like a few things, you're going to use the phrase ni and then the word ni again. So here's an example. If I want to say I don't like reading or writing, I have to say I like neither reading nor writing, and here's how it goes. No me gusta ni leer ni escribir. You gotta use ni twice. Letter N, letter I. No me gusta ni leer ni escribir. Last bit here. Let's talk about some seasons and some weather. El clima is the weather. It's also known as el tiempo. El clima o el tiempo. Las temporadas are the seasons. We also call those estaciones. Temporadas o estaciones. Los meses are the months. So we got el clima o tiempo, the weather. Las estaciones o temporadas, the seasons. Los meses, the months. Let's talk about each one. Okay, so if it's hot, we're going to say hace calor. If it's just sunny, we're going to say hace sol. Sol is sun, calor is heat. All right, so hace sol, it's sunny. Hace calor, it's hot. If it's cold, we're going to say hace frío. Hace frío. If it's windy, we're going to say hace viento. Think of like ventilation. It's a breeze. There's air moving. It's windy. Hace viento. If it's raining, we're not going to start this one with hace. Instead, we're just going to say llueve. Double L-U-E-V-E, llueve. Or you could say está lloviendo. If it's snowing, nieva. Or está nevando. So those are the only two weather types that don't start with hace. Alright, so we've got some seasons. El invierno is the winter. La primavera is the spring. El verano is the summer. Y el otoño is the fall. So we usually start school in el otoño, septiembre, octubre y noviembre. Then we get towards the holiday season, diciembre, the new year, enero, and then febrero. Then the spring comes, la primavera, and we have marzo, abril, we got spring break usually around then, and la primavera, and we got mayo. And then, thank God, no school en el verano. No hay escuela en el verano. No school in the summer. And junio, julio, agosto. ¿Qué tiempo hace? It's the question asking, what's the weather like? What weather is it? What's the weather like in el invierno? ¿Qué tiempo hace en el invierno? En el invierno, that's the winter, hace frío y nieva. En el verano, that's the summer, hace sol y hace calor. A veces, sometimes, a veces, llueve. En la primavera, in the spring, hace sol. A veces, sometimes, hace calor. Sometimes llueve. En el otoño, in the fall, hace frío o hace fresco. I didn't put this one on there, but fresco is like it's cool or chilly. Hace fresco y hace viento. En tu cumpleaños, ¿qué tiempo hace? What's the weather usually like on your birthday? And then underneath this, on your notes, you also have hoy, which is today. ¿Qué tiempo hace hoy? What weather is it like today? ¿Hace sol? ¿Hace frío? ¿Qué tiempo hace hoy? Alright, so in North America, we're used to having el invierno en diciembre, enero y febrero, la primavera en marzo, abril y mayo, el verano en junio, julio y agosto, y el otoño en septiembre, octubre y noviembre. However, in a lot of the Spanish-speaking countries that are closer to the equator, you don't really get 4 seasons divided like that. Instead, you often get basically 2 seasons. You get la temporada de lluvia, o la estación de lluvia, y la temporada o estación seca. Well, we already learned a word just like lluvia, llueve, which means rain. They get a rainy season, la temporada de lluvia, and then they get a dry season, la temporada seca. También muchos países del Caribe, right? So the countries in the Caribbean, so we got countries like Cuba, la República Dominicana, Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, they are often also affected by una temporada de huracanes. It's really common to have hurricane season. Alright, and one thing we'll talk about is how the seasons and the warm and the cold times of the globe are different once you go below the equator. Once you go south of the equator, from mayo to noviembre, it's actually common for it to be hace frío. When I went to Peru and Argentina in the middle of July, I had to wear a jacket, a winter coat, porque hacía mucho frío. And then from diciembre to abril, it's common for it to feel hace calor, hot. Okay, so if we're talking about seasons, esta temporada, this season, would be el invierno. This might represent la temporada de la primavera, springtime. This could be the kind of thing we might do during el verano, la temporada del verano, this summertime. Y este es el otoño. When the leaves change, la temporada es otoño. Okay. This season, not a lot of vegetation to eat. This probably is the dry season, la temporada seca. Rainy season. There might be flooding, right? Clouds, nubes. La temporada de lluvia. So here's an example from, I believe this picture's from Peru, and you can see the same place, how different it looks from la temporada de lluvia, the rainy season, to la temporada seca, the dry season. ¿Qué tiempo hace? What kind of weather is it? Hace sol. Y hace buen tiempo. It's nice weather. ¿Qué tiempo hace? Oof, looks hot. Hace calor. ¿Qué tiempo hace? Hace frío. ¿Qué tiempo hace? Hace viento. ¿Qué tiempo hace? Remember, this one doesn't start with hace, it's just llueve. It's raining. Llueve. ¿Qué tiempo hace? This one doesn't start with hace, it's just nieva. Nieva, it's snowing. What's this weather like? We're going to say está seco. It is dry. Está seco. Está seco. It's cloudy. Está nublado. Okay, so for example, en España está nublado. En la Guinea Ecuatorial hace sol y hace buen tiempo. En Cuba o la República Dominicana hace calor. En Guatemala hace viento. En la costa del Perú está seco. It's dry. En la selva amazónica, in the Amazon rainforest, llueve mucho. En las montañas de Chile nieva. Y en Uruguay en julio hace frío. So that's kind of an example of how you can talk about the weather. And so what we're going to do with this is to combine the first part with the second part. What do you like to do? ¿Qué te gusta hacer? And when, right? So for example, ¿qué te gusta hacer cuando hace calor? What do you like to do when it's hot? ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando llueve? What do you like to do when it's raining? ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando nieva? What do you like to do when it's snowing? ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando hace buen tiempo? Or I could ask you about the seasons. ¿Qué te gusta hacer en el invierno? What do you like to do in the winter? ¿Qué te gusta hacer en la primavera? What do you like to do in the spring? ¿Qué te gusta hacer en el verano? What do you like to do in the summer? I bet you there's a lot of activities that you do in the summer. ¿Qué te gusta hacer en el otoño? What do you like to do in the fall? ¿Qué te gusta hacer si es una temporada seca o una temporada de lluvia? So these are all ways we can turn this into conversation about our likes, dislikes, and our favorite times of year.